Sometimes, life doesn't destroy you. It rescues you from the wrong future. Picture this. Sarah, a name that once meant success, power, and prestige. Last Monday, she was a high-flying corporate executive, closing million-dollar deals from a corner office with a panoramic city view. Her calendar was a fortress of back-to-back meetings, her phone a constant stream of important calls. She had a handsome fiancé, a designer wardrobe, and a life that looked perfect on paper. By Friday, it was all gone. The market shifted, a deal collapsed, and she became the scapegoat. The termination letter was cold and impersonal. That same evening, her fiancé, the man who'd toasted her success just nights before, confessed he couldn't handle this downturn. He left, taking the future they had planned with him. Now, she sits in her minimalist, half-empty apartment. The movers took most of the furniture, the things he'd paid for. The silence is a physical weight, pressing down on her. The once glamorous city lights outside her window now feel like 1,000 judging eyes. Failure. The word echoes in the cavernous quiet. She scrolls through her contacts, but who can she call? The people in her circle were tied to her status, her title, her success. Without it, who was she? Just Sarah. And for the first time in years, that felt like nothing. Days blur into a haze of old photos and sleepless nights. In the back of a dusty closet, she finds a box from her childhood. Inside, beneath old report cards and faded letters, is a set of worn-out paintbrushes and a sketchbook filled with vibrant, unfinished drawings. A forgotten passion. She remembers a younger version of herself, a girl who didn't care about stock prices or corporate ladders, a girl who found joy in the simple act of creating color on a blank page. A realization dawns on her, slow and then, all at once, the life she lost. It wasn't a dream, it was a cage. A beautiful, gilded cage she had willingly locked herself into, trading her true self for a title and the approval of others. She had been performing, not living. The high-stakes pressure, the constant need to prove her worth, the relationship based on mutual ambition rather than genuine connection, was all a role she was playing. And now, the show was over. This is her emotional detox. The phone calls from concerned friends start coming in. What happened? What are you going to do? At first, she tries to explain, to justify, to manage their perception of her failure. But then, she stops. She stops explaining herself to people who only loved the version of her that wore a power suit. She lets their calls go to voicemail. She deletes the social media apps that showcase curated, perfect lives. She starts saying no to the noise and yes to the quiet. She picks up a paintbrush. The first stroke is clumsy, hesitant, but then another follows, and another. She paints not for an audience, not for acclaim, but for herself. She paints her grief, her anger, her confusion. The cold, sterile blues of her old life bleed into messy, hopeful yellows and oranges. She spends hours at a local community center, not as a wealthy benefactor, but as a volunteer, teaching children how to mix colors and express themselves. She sees the same spark in their eyes that she had lost in her own. The expensive clothes are sold. The swanky apartment is traded for a smaller, cozier space filled with plants and half-finished canvases. She is, by every conventional measure, poorer. She has less status, less influence, less of everything she once thought mattered. But as the sun sets, casting a warm, golden glow across her small living room, she feels a sense of peace she has never known. This isn't a setback, it's an alignment. A new alignment with who she was always meant to be. She is no longer Sarah, the executive. She is just Sarah. And for the first time, that feels like everything. They say you have to hit rock bottom. But maybe rock bottom isn't a pit of despair. Maybe it's the only solid ground strong enough to build a real life on. A life that is truly, authentically your own. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more.